Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Roll the Dice with Dave. So excited to be here for another week. I can't believe I've been doing this for a couple of months now. This has been a great ride. Thank you all for joining me. Want to welcome everybody that's on Facebook Live, either on my personal page, David Rivera Jr., or on my fan page, Roll the Dice with Dave. Also want to welcome everybody who is tuning in on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in to Roll the Dice with Dave. We're in for a great treat tonight. Also, I want to remind everybody, if you can please go ahead and Roll the Dice with Dave, and go ahead and share it with your friends. Anybody who's interested in any and all kinds of topics, I think would love what we are trying to accomplish and being the change we want to see in the world. So please go ahead and and share Roll the Dice with Dave. Also, while you are on tonight, if you feel so inclined, please go ahead and hashtag Roll the Dice with Dave. This will just let me know when you've made any kind of comments, so I can easily find all the information together. Also, if you end up tuning in at a later time, I want to welcome anybody that may watch this on a replay. Go ahead and feel free to use the hashtag replay. This just lets me know that you watched it later, and this way I can easily find all that information and we can interact and discuss any of the topics further. So before I keep going forward, I actually want to give a big shout out to my son. He had a great game last week on Friday. And I told him if he had gotten a pick six, I was going to get him some filet mignon and lobster. And he just came up short. Many of you have seen the footage, but I'm going to go ahead and roll this again. So he got so close. And of course, I had to give him a hard time that he got so close to the pick six. And then he lets a guy get him with a weak tackle by swiping at his feet. But he got really close. We're hoping to get one this week against rivals Nice. What I also want to do is give a big shout out to my daughter. Some of you may see the new graphics for the show. I was sitting there talking with my daughter, and I said, hey, I need help looking at doing the new logo. And my daughter, Sophia, she goes, hey, Dad, I think I could help you out with this. And she actually designed the new logo, put the new flag, did the digital creation. I'm really proud of her and what she did. Thank you so much for Sophia. I think it looks great. So if you're interested in being on the show or you're interested on a certain topic, please don't hesitate to reach out to rollthedicewithdave@gmail.com. Please go ahead and tune in, and we will go ahead and see if we can get your topic on the show and also have you on as a guest. I also want to bring note, there are a lot of people that are following the show, people that I know that are educators. So I want to go ahead and put this up. Flagler College, the Department of Education, is actually coming out with a new show for educators. And I just want to show you a little promo that they have running right now. Oh, it stopped. Hold on. Let's see. There we go. So they are coming up, I think, with a great topic, a great idea. And anybody who's in education and important topics, so no sound on that. Oh, man, I'm sorry about that. So what you want to do is you want to check out the video. Go ahead and go to Flagler College, Department of Education page and check it out. They are doing a lot of conversations on different topics. Anybody who's in education, it is going to be a great piece to follow. It comes on Mondays. So please like and follow that page as well if you are in education. A lot of great things going on there. Oops. So I also want to thank everybody that has turned in to Roll the Dice with Dave. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all of you that have been on with me, that have made comments, that are checking us out. We really do appreciate everything that you've done to help me with this show. So now we're about to get into it with our guest. I am really excited to have this guest come on, and I'm going to bring him in. So we have Ed McGinley, who is a faculty member at Flagler College. Ed, do you mind just doing a brief little introduction of yourself before we get moving into the show?
Sure. And I think you still owe your son maybe not lobster tail and filet mignon, maybe one of the two. I mean, that was pretty impressive.
Well, one guy said maybe a T-bone and some crab legs, right? So, but no, I tell you what, I was really impressed. We were pumped, and I mean, to be so close to that pick six,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah. So,
no, that was cool, man. So yeah, my name is Ed McGinley. I'm an associate professor of natural sciences at Flagler. I'm going into year 9, I think. It's 8 or 9.
Oh wow, 9 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've been here quite a while now. It seems weird that I can say that. Originally from Pennsylvania, grew up in Allentown, just outside of Allentown. Anyone who's in our age group or older will know the Billy Joel song Allentown. In that area, my parents, we lived in suburbs, and basically, during the summer or on the weekend, for as long as I can remember, basically they'd open the door and say, go play with your friends, be back for dinner. So, we'd go down to the rivers, the creeks, we'd go creek walking. We would look for crayfish. So I've always been interested in being outside in nature. And my parents actually encouraged that. They encouraged me to get scuba certified when I was in high school. They said, wherever you want to go to college, that's up to you. So, I wanted to study marine biology, so maybe I could have used a little bit more help because I picked a landlocked state. I went to St. Francis in central Pennsylvania, but I went because the professor there, Dr. Sue Mora, I didn't even know they had a scuba diving hall of fame, but she's in the Women's Scuba Diving Hall of Fame.
So hold on, let me time out you for a second. So there's they have a scuba diving hall of fame. I've never heard of that. And she's at a school in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And is in the scuba diving hall of fame. I think that is crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's now retired, but yeah, she was just an amazing person. And that was the entire reason I picked that school, was in that, when we do like the prospective student day, my interaction with her was that important. That's why I picked that college. So that's why, whenever we have them, I try to do them as well. Cause I remember how important that meeting was for me. So after I graduated college, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. Went home, lived at my parents' house, tried to apply for grad school, but no one really told me the process. So that's how I kind of developed the one class I teach at Flagler, which is science survival skills. How do you get into the science field after college? I lived at home, tried to get into grad school. It was frustrating. I basically threw my hands up and said, I'm done. Then I worked, I took a job as an oyster technician in Green Creek, New Jersey. So I worked on an oyster farm that was run by Rutgers University.
Oh, Scarlet Knights. My brother is a Scarlet Knight. He graduated from Rutgers.
And I give New Jersey a hard time, but I've actually loved the places I've lived in New Jersey. I like to joke that, it's the Garden State. Some areas are the garbage state, the landfill state, but Jersey has actually been very good to me. I ended up working there and realized, I don't want to be a technician the rest of my life. I want to be able to do more. So my dad actually finished my grad school application for me. I got into Frostburg State, where I studied wildlife and fisheries. I was looking at stream fish. I've always had an interest in fish specifically. And it was at Frostburg that I got to teach. I was teaching a human anatomy and physiology lab. I was the only one that had any anatomy or physiology experience, but it was all animals. But they were like, you're the only one who has any kind of experience in that realm, so you're going to teach human A and P.
Okay.
And it was a learning curve, but kind of like I do now, as long as you stay 1 week ahead of the students, you're good to go, man.
Oh man, and I tell you right now, how many faculty are feeling that, right? Just staying 1 week ahead of the students. Some of us are only just a couple of days ahead of the students.
I was going to say, yeah, I don't know, if I can even say I'm a week ahead. I might be one lecture ahead. But yeah, I fell in love with teaching there. So I knew I wanted to teach at a college. So I looked for opportunities that would let me work with fisheries, and then I could get a degree and teach at a college. So ended up applying. Friends of mine at Frostburg had gotten their masters at West Virginia, and I would go over them and with them and party in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I met Kyle Hartman, who was their advisor. So he took me on as a PhD student. So I spent my summers actually in Sandy Hook, New Jersey. So you could actually see over New York Bay and see the skyline. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, if you're from New York, you might have known people who took the ferry over to Sandy Hook for the day. I know a lot of New Yorkers did that.
That's crazy. We would have never met there, but we met here, right, in St. Augustine, Florida. Oh man, that's such a great story. So go ahead, please tell me a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it there because we lived on the old Army base. It's now a national park, Sandy Hook National Park, and it was a mix of park rangers, lifeguards, interns at the NOAA lab, PhD students, and we were all staying in these barracks there. And then, after the park closed at sundown, we basically had a national park to ourselves. So we'd walk to the beach. We could see the New York skyline at night. And it was just a phenomenal experience. So finished my PhD and then applied at two places. I applied at my undergrad. And actually, when I was interviewing there for a position, Terry Saran, the former department chair, called me and left a message and said, hey, we have an opening at Flagler. We'd like to bring you down to interview. Came on as a 1-year visiting and then applied for the full-time, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's a great story because now Terry is doing, coral farming is one of the things that she's doing. Is that correct?
So she did a sabbatical and went to Fiji, and it was, I forget how they actually met, but he, was at his parents or his family owns a resort, and they started a coral farm there. So yeah, that's what she did on sabbatical, and, just incredible opportunity for sure.
That is awesome. Now, this is my sister who just put up, and she homeschools her daughter. And they just finished studying on some sharks. And I'm going to bring up some stuff because you and I had a conversation about some of the cool stuff you saw.
Sure.
And then we'll kind of get into the whole shark thing. So this next little piece, before we get into anything else, surprise, right? So I have a few surprise questions for you.
Sure.
Just because one, I think you're just one of the most fascinating individuals I've ever met. I love just talking with you. So the first question I have for you is, I'm sure you have a bucket list like most people do. What is left? What are a few things left on your bucket list that you want to accomplish?
Oh, that's a good question. Emily and I, my wife Emily and I talk about, things we want to do. I have personal things and I have professional things that I definitely want to do. And one of the personal things, if I didn't go into science, I absolutely would have gone into history. Love history, love ancient Rome, ancient Greece. So like my dream vacation would be to go to Rome and just be able to take in the history, go to Vatican City, take in, the Sistine Chapel and the architecture. Professionally, one of the things I really want to do is, and Terry has done this, and I've seen the videos and the pictures, is, man, I want to swim with a whale shark. That just, that like seeing those videos and seeing, a person next to it, and I've seen them at the Georgia Aquarium, but like to be in the water with something that giant and peaceful, I think would just be, that would be top professional bucket list.
That's cool. And I want to bring up the comment again that my sister put up, because somebody had referred to you as my octopus teacher. And I think it's funny that she said, hey, watch the movie My Octopus Teacher on Netflix, because I saw somebody actually said that about you. They said, oh, I thought about Ed. I thought about you when I saw that this movie was coming out. And I think that's a testament to who you are. I haven't seen the movie, but I heard it's unbelievably good.
So I haven't either. My neighbor actually said, older guy, Lowell, lives next door, and he knows I study fish. And he came out the one day, he's like, you got to see this movie.
So, hey, who knows? Next thing you know, you might be on a Netflix series.
I love it.
So here's the next random surprise question. So here you have your smartphone. If you were required to delete every app but 3, what are the 3 apps you're going to keep?
I gotcha. So is my phone considered an app?
I would say no, but it's I guess the vehicle to access the app. So you can't just say I'm going to keep my phone.
Gotcha. So yeah, and I say phone.
I'm making it even harder on you now. Yeah.
Because and you've seen this, man, what I love doing is I love taking pictures of all the cool stuff I see and then sharing it on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. All right. I see what you're saying. So we'll let that count. We'll let that count as one, because I've seen some of those pictures you take. So, okay. So we'll let that count. That'll be 1. We'll say that's the camera app, right? The photo app itself. So that's 1.
You can tell I'm not a technology person, because I'm like, is that an application? I don't know, right? And then probably Facebook and Instagram, not because I'm, necessarily a social media junkie. I can be at times, but I just absolutely love sharing what I see and what I can take pictures of, and just letting people know, like, even though we live in, a developed area here in downtown St. Augustine, there's some amazing things here. And I just like letting people know that, nature is all around them, even if we're not in the middle of a forest or, the coral reef or whatever it might be.
Okay. So here's my next question for you is, if they were going to make the Ed McGinley movie, who plays you in that movie?
Oh man. Okay. So one thing I've always hated, and this goes back a long time, when Tom Green was popular, everyone told me I looked like Tom Green. I would hope he wouldn't play me. I would, if I'm aiming high, I'm saying Edward Norton. I don't know. I just always liked him as an actor. We share a name. But yeah, that's a tough one, because, I don't want to be vain and say, Jason Statham and we bear a very striking resemblance. But yeah, I would say Edward Norton. I like him.
All right. So I decided to pick a couple of guys, right? I picked a couple of guys that I thought, so I'm going to go ahead and add this. So one is Nick Offerman, and it's probably because I see him with this beard, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when I first met you, and I saw you, you had the beard and stuff kind of going, but that was not the thing that got me. The thing that got me, they were like, oh, this must be a special occasion. Ed's wearing pants instead of shorts, right? So because you're always on the boat out in the water. So that was one of those things from there. But I could so see Nick Offerman playing you in the Ed McGinley movie, right? So this is.
I would 100% be okay with that one.
All right. So this is one guy. And here's the other one. And I don't know if you're going to see it, but for some reason this triggered.
Okay.
Right. So, and I think it's, again, the beard, and not so much but the beard he had in Iron Man, right? It matches a little bit more. He had the bigger beard in Iron Man. Now he didn't have a shaved head, but you have your hair cut down. I could see that, right? And then I thought, you know what? They kind of already have an actor out there who could play you, and it's Jason Momoa, right? You could have Jason Momoa play you in a movie, dude. That would be
man. Heck yeah.
Yeah, so that you'd be all about that. So that was just a little fun thing as far as there from that aspect. So I want to move into the next little piece. And you actually did mention a little bit, but your role models. So you did mention, and I can't remember her name, but she's the one in the Scuba Diving Hall of Fame.
Yep.
But maybe, is there somebody else that you would go, oh yeah, this is definitely a role model, or somebody that I look up to?
So I think easily the first two that I would have to say would be my parents. Just because when I was growing up, I mean, we would go on vacation and I would, beg them to take me to an aquarium, a marine science center. When we went on vacation to Kiwa Island, we'd go on kayaking trips. We'd rent bikes and, ride around to look at nature. They've always just been so supportive of anything I wanted to do. But it's kind of in that, shooting down dreams, but not shooting down dreams. Because I'd be like, they'd say, what are you going to do? And I'd say, I'm going to play in the NBA, as like an 8th grader.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, okay, well, let's say you were injured and you couldn't play in the NBA anymore. What would you want to do? So like they didn't outright shoot down my dreams of, being the next Michael Jordan. But they absolutely encouraged just anything I wanted to do. And that would probably be one of two of the easiest ones to say. And then, the Dr. Sue Mora, just because she is another one who, I was that typical kid in college who I got good grades in high school by not studying. So I tried to skate by in college, and man, she called me on that. And she was not afraid to put me on notice and say, you're really screwing up, right? You should be doing better. So I credit where I am today professionally to her letting me know to stop being a slacker. That was a major kind of turning point for me in college, was trying to heed her words about not wasting an opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And this last little piece, 3 words. What 3 words would people use to describe Ed McGinley?
So my wife keeps telling me from the next room to not talk so loud. So she would always tell you I am loud. That my voice actually will go through concrete walls. And I think most people who would have interactions with me would say I'm loud. I am extroverted, probably to the extreme. I will talk to anybody. I will, go up to random people, at Christmas parties, at bars, and just talk to people. And then I think the last one is probably it's 2 words, but imposter syndrome. So even though I do all this stuff, there's often times where I'm like, am I just playing at this, right? Am I really doing what I should be doing? Am I really making a difference? So, I struggle with that quite a bit.
Well, as somebody that works with you, I can definitely say you are making a difference. Your work with the Center for Teaching and Learning, I think, has been great for not just me, but for faculty across campus. So thank you so much for all that you do. We do appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
Now we're going to jump into talking about your love and your passion for a little bit about the natural sciences. So one of the things that I want to pull up is you and I had a conversation, and I'm just going to lay it out. So everybody, please forgive the language, but you talked about cool shit, right? When you said that, you were like, you're just in, and I was like, oh man, tell me more. So I asked you to send me some pictures and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to add this to the stream, and here's some of the coolness, right, that you have found out there. So what is this? Right? Can you tell me, what is this?
So those are hardhead catfish. So they're a saltwater catfish. And this is actually down at the St. Augustine Marina. You can find this, usually it's in the spring. When some of the fish breed, there's all these juvenile fish around, and you'll see jacks coming up, and the catfish will actually just gorge themselves. And then when the jacks come up, they kind of scatter into the corners of the marina. But yeah, I just kind of bent down. I'm probably maybe a foot away from these catfish. They're just hanging out, just gorging on whatever fish they can get.
See, and that's crazy, right? And it's right here in St. Augustine. So I live in a place where you could just walk and go find this. So I need to hang out with you a little bit more to get a better understanding of all the cool stuff that does exist. So I'm going to move over to the next picture.
Yep.
What is this?
So that is, and I meant to look up some of these names. It's been a while since I looked at this one. But this is, it's a worm. So it is, these guys, we have these little habitat baskets that are about a foot long, and we fill them with oyster shell, and we just kind of see what colonizes. So we put it in a kitty litter pan, but I was told by Jess Clark from First Coast News, kitty litter pan isn't sexy enough. So I call them COTS now, collection and observation trays. I made a really sciencey sounding thing out of it. But yeah, those projections you see on the back are not necessarily gills, but they allow gas exchange. So that's how they get oxygen out of the water.
Oh, okay. All right. So a lot of people are loving the pictures that you put up there. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next one. So I love this because I want to give a little context before you go into it.
Sure.
So just to let everybody know, there is a hierarchy in education. You have your upper level administration. And I thought this was cool because these are two of the highest ranking individuals on the Flagler College campus, actually out on a boat with Ed McGinley doing his thing, right? So this, I'm putting a cross over this one individual. This is Alan Woolfolk. He is our Vice President of Academic Affairs. Then our fearless president, Dr. Joe Joyner, is also on the boat with you. And my question is, how the hell did you manage to get them both on the boat with you?
So that's Zach McKenna EcoTour. So we partner with him. And the sampling we're doing is a trawl net. So it is this big net that is trailed from the back of the boat, has these big wooden doors that keep it open. So this is like a 16-foot long net, right? So this thing is not light, and it's a pain in the butt to deploy off the boat. But I emailed Alan and Joe the one day, and I said, hey, would you like to come out and see what we do? And, of course, Dr. Joyner immediately was like, yeah. So I have a sneaking suspicion Alan wanted to, but then didn't know that, or didn't, or couldn't say no at that point, right? So, right, because Dr. Joyner's there. So, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but they both came out, and I will give them both credit, right? So they both pulled the trawl net. They went through the net. They were seeing what's in there. So yeah, it's just, as I said, I'm extroverted, right? So we were doing this, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to email them and see if they want to come out. And, that's the great thing about Flagler is we know the president, we know the dean, we, are on good terms, good speaking terms, good relationship. So they are willing to kind of see what faculty are doing at the institution. And that was just a phenomenal day.
So it was, and I want to throw this question back up. So Amber gave you a little shout out right there, talking about how great you are. So my sister wants to come on down. She wants to set up an outdoor discovery session with you. My niece would absolutely love it. So is that something we can make happen, Ed, or is there?
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, Sin, come on down. We'll make it happen. We'll have a good old time. And maybe I'll wait. So then this way, when she comes down, I can go on the boat for the first time too, and be just as excited about the first time as my niece. That would be awesome. That would be fun.
Sure.
So I'm going to run through. So here's you putting in some work, and that is Alan Woolfolk again. Can you describe, what are you guys doing right here?
So that on the trawl net, so that's the door. So to deploy this net, I mean, it's tricky because you have a line attached to a buoy that you throw out first. Then you have to feed the net out, which has a chain on the bottom. It's called the tickler chain, which the idea is it kind of tickles the bottom and forces fish up into the net. So
that's crazy. That is, I'm sorry, man. You can take the kid out of New York, but you can't take New York out of the kid, right? I just didn't see a lot of this stuff growing up. So this is fascinating to me.
And those are called, what are they called? This is an otter trawl, and those are the trawl boards. So what you do is then you put the boards out, and they kind of go at an angle. I'm trying to figure out where my camera is. So they're at an angle being pushed back by the water, so the net makes a D. So this is me showing Alan how to put it out, because the outboard motor, we have to deploy the net on one side and then lift the line over the motor. And you have to be really, really careful, because if your foot gets tangled in the line, that net is pulling you right off the boat. So a little bit of danger, but I mean, we've never had any issue because we make sure everyone's safe. But yeah, I had Alan and Dr. Joyner doing that.
It would have been crazy if you had video footage of like Woolfolk or Joyner getting stuck in the net and getting lofted up. That would have been crazy. But
I don't think we'd be here doing this podcast.
I'd be doing it with your replacement. Is that what you're saying? So I do have another question tied to this because, like I said, this is fascinating. So it tickles the fish to drive them up to the surface.
It drives them up. So the idea is, we might be running this in 10 feet of water.
Okay.
So the net opening from that chain to the floats on the top might only be 3 or 4 feet. So the idea is you kind of anything that's on the bottom, they at least go off the bottom, and then the net is moving forward with the boat, so they kind of get pushed into the net.
Got it. Okay. And I want to throw this comment up because it looks like we might be getting the first applicants for the Ed McGinley summer natural sciences camp because Jessica wants her daughter to go too. Actually, man, there might be something there. We might have the Ed McGinley summer science camp, man. Who knows where this can go? So
I've done that before with so I've done the college reach out program, which is now beyond the diploma, and those are students from local areas. I know a lot of students were from Murray Middle. But they come out and they would see what college is like. So I'd run like 4 sessions. We'd take them out on the boat. We do, work at the dock. I've worked with GTM NER and a friend of mine, Mike Allier, who owns a sailboat. We've done dockside discovery where, we just take a net and you can go to a marina and just dip the net in and find all kinds of crazy stuff. So by all means, my goal is when COVID passes, is to take our seine net out, send an email to faculty and say, faculty and staff, bring your kids. We'll go to Matanzas Inlet, and I'll stay there for hours with people in the net, and they can see all kinds of fish and crab.
I'm all about it. I'm definitely down for that. I am all about that. So one of the things, and I'm not sure if you have a picture in it, so I want to mention it so I don't forget. You mentioned you had seen was it a bonnet head shark?
Mm-hmm.
So my sister was just talking about, they finished talking about sharks. This was in St. Augustine that you saw a bonnet head shark.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about that experience. Like, what happened that led up to you seeing a bonnet head shark in St. Augustine? Because to me, that just blows me away. The only time I really see sharks, right, is Shark Week. I get excited for Shark Week. So you're basically living a Shark Week, seeing a bonnet head shark. So if you can just tell me how that all happened.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to ruin like your water experiences for the rest of the time. So it's actually kind of neat. We have a bonnet head nursery, and I don't necessarily work a lot with sharks. The sharks I have seen have all been kind of chance encounters. And let's see here, up at the St. Augustine by the seawall by the fort. Saw about a 4 or 5 foot bonnet head shark swimming next to the seawall. And then the one I saw the other day, we were down past the Bridge of Lions, and we had stopped on the shore, and one of my students goes, "That's a shark." And it was probably a little 2 or 3 footer, and we saw the fin out of the water. But next to the fort, I've had a student, this was years back, he caught a 6 foot bull shark from the land right next to the fort.
So you said a 6 foot bull shark.
Yep.
Dude, that's crazy.
That's why I said I don't know. And talk to any of the surfers around here, they'll tell you that. We have I don't know all the shark species we have, but they've seen some lunkers out there when they're paddling.
Wow, that's nuts. And I don't know if you saw my wife threw it up there. Your camp is growing. It's not official yet, but yeah, it's growing. So and it looks like you're going to have a youth and an adult camp that you'll have to navigate through, right? So
I love it. I love getting everyone to see what we have. So not a problem.
So this is Dr. Joyner, the president of Flagler College. What is he holding in his hands?
So it's funny you say that, right? So we took this picture, and Dr. Joyner's Facebook page, which I am sure Dr. Joyner is not at home, like on Facebook updating. So the college forum, and someone said, "What is he holding?" And Laura Stevenson had to email me and ask me that question. So what he is holding is it's called a brief squid, BRIEF. They are one of, if not the only estuarine squid. Most squid live off the coast in, the open ocean. These guys, and the one he's holding is an adult. So even though it's small, it's an adult.
Okay.
This was like another step that led to another research project. We've been out sampling thousands of times, and we have seen, maybe 3 or 4 of these during the day. That student who caught the bull shark took the net out at night and found a bunch at night. So that led to a research project that I'm working on turning into a manuscript and sending out for peer review. Is the movement, even in our estuary, which isn't super deep, right? High tide, deepest you're going to get, I've seen on the depth finder, it's about 40 feet. But we have things.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, in that channel. But most of it's pretty shallow. We have things like juvenile fish and squid that are moving up. They're moving to the shallows. And that was all just because a student was like, hey, can I take the net at night? And I'm like, don't go by yourself. And that, basically led to a research project.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool, man. That's also a testament to, giving the little plug to Flagler. I think that's one of the things that makes us so great and differentiates us from some of the bigger monstrosity of the schools is the intimacy we can have with some of the students as far as we get to know them, they get to know us, and some of the things that we get to do, which then results in them further fostering their love for the discipline that they're in. Oh, yeah. Us getting to help them a lot more because I just don't know at any of the institutions that I used to teach at that were so big. If a student's like, hey, can I borrow the net? They're like, ooh, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? Because You get worried and just like, hey, yeah, sure. Just don't go out at night, right? The last thing you want is student to disappear from that standpoint. But it just shows the difference because there's a level of comfortableness in knowing the students.
And I want to jump. The one thing that I absolutely love is, so that student graduated, wasn't the best student, but worked his butt off with research. Emily and I took the girls down. He works at Animal Kingdom as a educational interpreter. So we went down and visited him. This was before COVID, and walked around with him around the park. And, he was showing my girls the different stuff. So, the students that come through our program, a lot of them, we keep tabs with and see them after graduation, which is awesome.
That is cool, man. That's cool. And this is another picture that you have sent me. What is this?
So that is an animal. It's called a tunicate or a sea squirt, and that is a colony of sea squirts. So what'll happen is I have a picture somewhere, and I can show you, after the podcast. But the larvae of these guys look like tadpoles. So they'll swim and they'll find some place to attach, and they will attach to the bottom. This is one of our baskets, and they'll grow. And you'll see one of the things I love about these guys is they're known as sea pork, is another way people will call them.
Like pork, like P-O-R-K, like a
like from a pig. Why did you look at that and went, that reminds me of, pig meat, but in the ocean.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And these things will grow just all over the place. If you look at any dock, any piling, when they talk about the biofouling community that grows on boats, this is the type of stuff they're talking about.
Got it. Okay. So I want to go ahead and jump into a question that I've had. Most of the people I know in the discipline are not people of color. So my question to you is, why do you think that happens? And what could possibly be done to maybe get people of color more interested in the natural sciences?
Absolutely. And this topic always comes up at conferences I'm at. Because if you look at field sciences in particular, lab sciences are a little bit different, at least in terms of attracting a more diverse workforce. But if you look at like FWC, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation, a Department of Environmental Protection, it tends to be white males. And a lot of the feeder programs into this have gone, or one of the big recruitment areas is hunting and fishing. So growing up in an area that you have access to the outdoors is one of the big things, is a good predictor of people going into the field sciences. And what's a shame is, even though people live in cities and maybe you have higher concentrations of people of color living in cities, there are still opportunities. It doesn't have to be a giant, sprawling national park. It could be a local city park where people just get out. It's, the root cause, I don't necessarily know, but I don't think for the longest time people other than white males were encouraged to go into science.
Mhm.
Part of it is, if you look at role models in the field, there's not a lot of people to look up to. I was reading a story not too long ago where it was a geologist and he was Black. He went to a conference and he found one other Black geologist out of like 2,300 people at a conference. So it's tough because there's not role models. So all of that being said, what I'm personally trying to do, I'm working with one of our alumni and my friend Mike Allier. We're trying to start a nonprofit. And the idea of the nonprofit is to do these, we were talking about these summer camp ideas,
Mhm.
but get people out on boats, get people in the field. And part of the mission would be to get people out who might never have that opportunity. When we do this Beyond the Diploma camp, students come out from West Augustine and they've never been on a boat and they've lived here for 12, 15 years. And it's a barrier to them because a lot of at least with estuaries and off the coast, you need boat access. So there's definitely a financial barrier if you don't have it through school, right? So we're trying to overcome that financial barrier, get students who might not otherwise have those opportunities out in the water, exposed to science, and let them know that this is an opportunity, right? You don't have to own a boat to become a scientist. You just need to have that drive and that passion. So there's a lot of factors at play. I think we're at least shining a spotlight on a lot of those issues in science. The lack of equity in science. I mean, I've had students who have been at Flagler in my 8 years there, who at some point in school, women especially, were told, "Are you sure you really want to go into sciences? It's really tough."
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of issues. I'm hoping with, the things that are changing in our society, that addressing inequality in different disciplines becomes one of those.
Okay. Thank you so much for that answer. I really appreciate it. And I do want to get to this question. I think it was hilarious that, of course, Lauren Gatelman would ask this question, right? She says she loves sharks movies. Besides Sharknado, what is your favorite shark movie?
Oh, that's a good one. So I have not watched the 47 meters down. So my wife has watched those. So I have to think, if I'm going with one, it's got to be Deep Blue Sea. I mean, you got sharks, you got Samuel.
LL Cool J, right? LL Cool J was in that one.
You got it. Right? Yeah. And I think one of the best lines of that movie was something like, you took nature's oldest killing machine and you made it even smarter. And it, hubris of humans interacting or, manipulating nature and the downfall from that. So I've always loved Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah, that is a good one. I do like that one as well. The 47 meters down, those are also pretty good. I enjoyed those. I wanted to throw this up because former student of mine at East Carolina said she loves your perspective. You're a champ for natural science. And I just wanted to throw it out. I think everybody that meets you can attest to that. You definitely are such an advocate, not just for what you do, but your perspective and how you look at different things. And she summed it up really well. And we are all very appreciative of what you do, not just for the sciences that you're involved in, but sciences as a whole. So thank you so much for that. Lauren Gatelman also put she loves Deep Blue Sea. So I'm going to move into the next little pieces that you and I have talked about, and just how things that are happening out there are impacting nature. So one of the questions that I do have for you is, how do you think climate change is impacting what you love to do?
Sure. And there's a couple easy ways to kind of sum that up. One is visually. So there's been a lot of talk, and I've been involved with folks from the Whitney Lab, which is University of Florida's Whitney Lab for Marine Bioscience down in Marineland. Todd Osborne specifically, and then some folks from other institutions, the Smithsonian here in Florida, Candy Felker. And I'm just a small part of this because I'm at a teaching college. But one of the things that we're interested in here in Florida is we're at what's called an ecotone. So that is a transition from one habitat to another. If you look outside, mostly we have salt marsh. So that's the tall grass looking stuff. But we also have trees growing out there, and those are mangroves. And, if you're from South Florida, you're used to, 20, 30-foot mangrove trees. One of the problems is mangroves can't deal with a hard freeze, so they get killed back. We haven't had a good hard freeze here in, I think, 12 or 15 years. So the mangroves are actually moving north, and the mangroves are actually replacing the salt marsh. So one of our questions is that going to affect fish communities? Is that going to affect chemical processes? Is it going to affect how land animals like snakes and birds use the area? So that's one big way, is the vegetation is changing. And then the other big thing is, with climate change, water temperatures are rising. So fish are going to have a natural range of area that they find tolerable. Some have a huge range, right? Like striped bass will go from essentially New England all the way down here to Florida. Some things are going to have a much narrower range. As temperatures rise, those organisms are going to try to go farther north to get to areas that are kind of more amenable to them. In other areas like the North Sea, the fish are going deeper because they want that colder water. The water's getting too warm. So in our area, what we're going to see with the shallow water and the continental shelf is things are moving farther north. That includes mangroves. We're going to change the habitat. And what the big question that we have no idea of, how does that affect all of the things here? Could it be, a net gain? It's beneficial. We don't really see all that much change. Or could it have drastic impacts we don't foresee? And that's why we're kind of doing as much as we can baseline. That's kind of where I come in. Doing the heavy instrumentation type stuff, biogeochemical analyses are way outside of my expertise. But what I can do is, we're here, we can get out all the time. Let's take a baseline of the fish that are here. How does that change over time?
Okay. So I kind of want to jump back a second, because there was a question, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but some of the other programs Flagler may do to try and reach out to inner city youth at middle schools or high schools to try and get them introduced to the field of study. Can you just touch on that a little bit more again?
So specifically natural sciences?
Yes. Or actually, it looks like just science in general as a field of study.
It depends on the institution. I know a lot of institutions are reevaluating how they. I heard a story on NPR the other day, which I'd never thought about. The SAT isn't really a test to get into college. It is a gateway for people who have money to get to college, because they can afford the tests, they can afford the study guides, right. They can afford tutoring sessions. So even, you start at something as simple as getting into college, there's issues. And then underrepresented groups in college, is there even a support structure there to begin with as well? So Flagler, I think, is doing a good job of trying to recruit students we don't normally or wouldn't normally have seen come to Flagler in the past. I think Dr. Sandra Miles, as our VP of Student Affairs and our Chief Diversity Officer, is doing phenomenal work with building that infrastructure once students are here to make them feel more welcome, that there is a community here. I know one of the biggest issues can be, we don't want diversity to be a number of non-white people we admit to college, because that is not the purpose. We need to open who we recruit and get to college, and then make sure they succeed. Otherwise, we're just doing them a massive disservice. And I feel like Flagler is recognizing that, is doing that. We absolutely have room to grow, like any place does. In terms of our specific major, I know Dr. Brown has talked about, even something as simple as like a surf camp for students who might not normally go to the beach. I know Dr. Veenstra with her science comm class is having students go out and give presentations to groups that might not, get a scientific presentation or be as receptive, going to things like the farmers market, going to festivals just to interact with people. So I think that's where we're at right now, is trying to find our way in how do we do this in a way that is not patronizing and a way that is meaningful.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Next question, kind of still touching on the climate change aspect, is why do you think some people, including some scientists, believe that climate change is not a thing impacting nature right now?
I can tell you from my perspective, I think about it, right? And, not to get existential, but, I live here in Lincolnville, and, you think about it. If I walk to campus, that's 15 minutes, and Jacksonville's an hour away. And my dad lives 6.5 hours away in North Carolina. And I have to take a plane to see my aunt in Chicago. And then you think there's people on the other side of the world, right? So just that scale of, we are talking about a global issue that is affecting an entire planetary body. I mean, sometimes it's just difficult to wrap your mind around that one species could impact an entire planet. So I think for some people, it might just be a scale issue. It's hard to grasp that actions that we are doing on our little street here in St. Augustine are contributing to a global phenomenon. So I think that's part of it. Two, I think even groups or people who say they, it's cyclical, humans aren't having an impact. I think, and maybe it's just me, I think they know that's nonsense, but it would be costly to change what they are doing. And when you start having to include externalities like pollution in your bottom line, your costs are going to go up. And when your costs go up, your profits go down unless you charge your customers more. So I think there's kind of a, that aspect. And there are some people out there who just don't understand science, who think, and I mean, I read the news to my chagrin, people who talk about, who promote conspiracy theories, who say Dr. Fauci, he flip-flop on masks, so therefore scientists don't know what they're talking about. Shows just a general misunderstanding of how science works. So I think it's a science literacy issue too. We're 34th in the world in science education. So, I don't know how true this study is anymore, but it was a couple of years ago. A third of people who were asked thinks that the Earth or the sun goes around the Earth. These are just things that you hear and you're like, but no. So I think it's a lot of factors, and, not to get political, not to say one party's better than the other. When you have people tweeting out information to a wide audience, they are going to take that as valid information. So unless that information is fact-checked before sent out, a lot of people are just going to take it at face value, depending on the source, and that can be an issue.
Cool. Before we get into kind of the last question I have here, what are some of the things that you do with your family to help promote I guess, being responsible when it comes to nature, and not even just your family, but everybody. What are some of the things you do to try and get people to be responsible to help preserve some of these great natural resources that we do have?
Absolutely. And the answer I can tell you for our family is not enough. Emily and I talk all the time about how we can do better. And some things are simple. We used to be a 2-car household. Now we're a 1-car household. Emily works from home. She's a virtual school teacher. And we own a hybrid vehicle. So we've tried to cut down on our CO2 emissions. We have joined Local Fare, which does vegetable delivery. So we try to get all of our vegetables locally. The old saying, think globally, act locally. So we try meat as well. We try to get locally. We've also tried to cut down on the amount of meat we eat. Cow, my students always look at me weird, but cow farts are responsible for something like 18% of the methane in the atmosphere.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at cows, to grow 1 pound of cow meat, it takes something astronomical, like 1,500 gallons of water. So moving towards a vegetarian lifestyle or eating lower on the food chain, and a lot of other countries do it. It's tough for America, but eating bugs, right? Bugs are easy to raise. They're high in protein, quick life cycle. I have a feeling a lot of your listeners are going to go, that's where he had me. Right.
But what's funny is I had Barbara Legally Blonder on the show, and these are some of the same things that she was talking about, right? These are some of the exact same things that she was talking about.
I'll tell you a quick story. So I did a learning community with Jen Thweet, who was phenomenal. And she was doing world religions, and I was doing biology. The one day, and this was when my wife was pregnant, so we were talking about animal rights and eating smart. So I actually ordered bugs to bring in, and it was like chocolate covered worms. And, we started talking about milk, and people were like, yeah. I was like, we are drinking secretions from another animal. No other animal does that. And I was like, what if I brought in breast milk? I was like, would you guys drink it? And they were like,
no.
So I brought it in. I checked with my wife. She was fine with it. I brought it in. I said, look, I'm not giving extra credit because I don't want anyone to feel pressure. Out of 20 students, 18 people drank my wife's breast milk, and they all ate bugs.
Oh, wow. So you really got to push that envelope right there.
I did. And, if you think about it, they were like, oh, that's gross. And I'm like, as a baby, you drank breast milk. Granted, it wasn't from my wife, but when you think about, like, we keep animals around, one species of animal around, just so we can perpetually get them pregnant. And believe me, we have milk in the fridge. I'm terrible. But we keep them around to milk them so we can drink their milk.
Yeah. Dairy cows. Yeah, there you go, right there. So, all right, as we kind of get ready to bring this together, the last question is, how do you think the results of the election are going to impact kind of just natural resources in America going forward?
Yeah, and I was actually reading some stuff. I don't know why, but I wade into the comment sections of news articles I see on Facebook, and that's where civility and knowledge go to die, is in the comment section. And people were actually talking about this very issue of natural resources, and someone said the current administration has done more for the environment than any administration before. And they pointed to the Outdoors Act, which kind of preserves more lands. But I think what we've been seeing is a rollback of regulations that, to me, is frightening with the current administration. We're talking about opening up ANWR to oil drilling, and we have seen what can happen and does happen repeatedly with drilling for oil, as oil spills and lots of pollution. So I don't know if one candidate is the answer and the other is the enemy. All I know that with the current administration, the rollback of regulations is incredibly harmful to natural resources. We are seeing more of an exploitative mindset where nature is there for us to take and take and take, and not a more of a conservationist mindset of, yes, we should take things from it, but we should do so in a smart way. I don't see that from this current administration.
Cool. Thank you so much for that answer. Just a different perspective, because a lot of people look at certain things.
Sure.
And really, a lot of times when it comes to natural resources, that's not something that people go, well, this is influencing how I'm going to choose a candidate. So I figured I'd have you on. I figured I'd ask because this is your bag, right? This is your thing. So I figured let me go ahead and ask Ed his perspective on kind of how things are going.
And if you look from a St. Augustine's perspective, man, sea level rise is going to be a huge issue. I know Barbara Blonder talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, the current administration sending out tweets like climate change is a hoax put on by the Chinese, pulling out of the Paris Accords. I mean, those are major decisions, and they are going to have massive impacts locally. So if we're thinking locally, we need to start acting yesterday on things like climate change and sea level rise.
Well, it was crazy because just driving home today, I mean, the marshes on my way coming down by Sebastian Middle School, I couldn't believe how high it was.
Yeah.
And it's not like we had a major rain or anything in the last few days. It was really high. And I was like, man, just a little bit higher, and it spills into the road.
That was on King Street, right by the King Street Bridge and FEC, where they're building that new hotel. The parking lot
flooded. It did. So I would definitely not want to be there, parked there, if that's going to be the case, right? So, Ed, as we get ready to wrap up, I just want to give you a chance to provide just some of your final thoughts and words tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will put out a plug for my Instagram feed. It's at St. Aug Nature. That started because in the spring when we switched to online, I wanted to
all
give
together.
It's at st_aug_nature.
I'm putting it in the comments. So at St. Aug Nature. So this way it could be out in the comments. Or if anybody forgets it or anything, they can go ahead and follow it.
That's perfect. But I did that because students, in April, they left campus. Some of them didn't come back till August. So it started as hey, this is a chance for you to remain connected to St. Augustine. And it really has grown into, it's just an appreciation of nature. It's going out and, there's things out there everyone's scared of, spiders, snakes, stinging insects, but even those, they have a natural beauty to them. I'd be worried, obviously, if cotton mouse were in the yard with my girls and my dogs, but nature has an inherent beauty, and that's been kind of my driving force underlying everything. Is I'm like a little kid out there. I could see a fish 1,000 times, and I want to see it again, right? It's just fascinating to know we are surrounded by so many cool things. I want to see them all before I'm done here. And it's impossible, and that's what keeps me going.
So one of the questions, and I think you can actually type it in the comments, Ed, if you don't mind just putting in the name of your nonprofit. Joel is a former student of mine, also from East Carolina. Joel, thank you so much for tuning in. Ed, I just want to thank you so much again for being on the show. I'm looking forward to being part of the inaugural group of the Ed McGinley Summer Science Camp in St. Augustine. I think it's going to be a fun adventure. And again, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You were one of the first people I met at Flagler, and you had such a big impact on me, and you continue to this day. I've learned so much from you, and I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship and me just learning more from you as the years go on. So thank you so much for everything and being on tonight.
Absolutely. And Joel, it's funny you asked for the name. We're still working on that. So we've kind of come together. We've gathered the information of articles of incorporation, and all of those kind of legal aspects. So the goal is to work through the next couple months and get all that taken care of. Once we're at that point, I'll definitely let Dave know to put it out on his podcast. We'd love all the support we can get. But yeah, still planning right now.
So that is awesome. Again, Ed, thank you so much. We're getting ready to wrap up. So our guest next week is going to be Dr. Eric Newbill from East Carolina University. He is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Student Involvement and Leadership, and I've known Eric for a long time. And he and I were talking, and he asked if he can come on the show and just talk a little bit about the anti-Semitism aspects in the age of Black Lives Matter. And we're also going to be discussing something that we're dealing with here at Flagler going forward, champion not managing freedom of expression. So when somebody actually says something that is contradictory maybe to your viewpoint and still supporting their freedom to express it, not trying to squelch it because it is a contradiction of what you believe. I'm really looking forward to having Eric on the show. And if you want to connect further and have more conversation, please don't hesitate to reach out. My Facebook fan page is Roll the Dice with Dave. You can find it on Facebook. I also have my regular profile page, which is David Rivera Jr. You can catch me on Twitter, El Leon de Flagler, and also Rivera D, the Flagler Prof. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining me tonight. We really appreciate you being on. Again, Ed, thank you so much for joining me. I hope everybody has a great night and continues to go out there and try to be the change you want to see in the world. Everybody have a great night and see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.